When you talk about RC racing legends, before brushless motors, LiPos, and telemetry, you're talking about dirt, noise, and pure innovation. Welcome to the early days of RC buggy racing. It all kicked off in the early 80s, when off-road RC was still an experiment. Back then, racers were hacking together on-road kits, raising suspensions, and cutting their own tires just to handle loose dirt and jumps. Every run was part engineering, part chaos. Then, in 1985, history was made. The very first IFMAR Off-Road World Championship took place in Del Mar, California. That place put off-road buggies on the map. Names like Associated, Kyosho, and Schumacher were pushing the limits of what 1/10 scale buggies could do. Drivers like Masami Hirosaka, Brian Kinwald, Gil Loshi Jr., and even Hobby Plus's own Scott Hughes, aka The Squirrel, came up during this golden era. These are guys who helped shape what the RC world would look like, even outside of buggy racing. It was raw, mechanical, and hands-on. No tuning apps, no digital radios, just wrenches, brushed motors, and pure instinct. And from those dusty tracks came the innovations that we still use today. Adjustable suspensions, ball diffs, modular chassis setups, all born from racers testing ideas at local club tracks on the weekends. What started as just backyard tinkering evolved into a global sport, a mix of passion, precision, and community that defined a generation of RC racers. Because in those early days, it wasn't just about who had the best car. It was also about who could make their car survive all the way to the finish line first.
Welcome back to the Shop Mini RC, everybody. I'm Gen, and today we are checking out the new Hobby Plus Speck-B. Look at that guy. How awesome is that? This thing is going to be a blast. It's awesome to see that there's a new competitor to the other platforms that are out there. Also, it's really cool to see Hobby Plus move into something that's not crawler related, because Hobby Plus historically has been mostly crawlers, and I think this is going to be a flagship for non-crawler stuff. I think if this does well, we're going to see a ton of other really cool stuff come out of Hobby Plus. So I'm excited to check this thing out and share it with you. So let's go ahead and just take a quick look at the box here. Look at that. Cool box art. There's some specs. You can zoom in, pause. There's some more specs. There's two different colors. We got them both. This one right here, the vintage cream. Vintage cream? Yeah, vintage cream. And then we got another one as well. So we'll check that out. Let's get this opened up on the bench. We'll dive into these things. We'll run them, tell you our thoughts. And yeah, we'll have a conversation down in the comments. Let's talk about it. All right, this thing is exciting. Super excited to check this thing out. Look at that. That's cool. Let's go. That's cool. And then here's the other color. Look at that one. Very cool. These are some cool buggies for sure. Speck-B. Look at this transmitter. Nice familiar transmitter, the Fly Sky stuff. I really love these transmitters on the small scale rock crawlers. They're perfect throwing your backpack. They don't take up a lot of space. You can just kind of grab them and go, which is awesome. We'll go over the settings here just for anybody who's new. You've got your throttle dual rate and your throttle trim. Throttle dual rate is how far the throttle will go. So basically the speed. So max throttle here, but you can turn it down so your max speed is less. And then your trim obviously is your center for your forward to reverse. You're going to always want that centered so you're not going without pushing the trigger. Then we have our steering dual rate and steering trim. Same things. Steering dual rate is how far your steering is. If you're steering too much and it feels kind of twitchy, like you barely turn it and it goes vroom, then you probably want to turn down your dual rate a little bit. And then trim is obviously your center. It's basically your why am I spacing out right now? Your wow guys, what is it called on a real car? Alignment. It's your alignment. Jeez. buggies. All right, so yeah, trim is like your alignment. Then we have steering reverse and throttle reverse. That's so that if you, for some reason, some people drive this way, kind of in a different fashion, or you just want things, maybe you fly inverted, I don't know. Steering reverse, that way you turn one way, it'll go the other way. And then throttle reverse, that would mean this would be forward and this would be reverse. We also have our bind button, very simple to bind these things. You basically just hold on the bind button, turn on the transmitter, then turn on the rig. Give it a second, it'll bind. Worst case, just kind of reset the transmitter, turn it off, turn it back on, and it should be bound up. Then we have all these dip switches here. Dip switches are forward brake reverse or forward reverse. So on a crawler, usually you'll do forward reverse. There's no brake. It just goes forward, straight into reverse. But in a race car, you want either forward with no reverse, so forward brake. Unfortunately, these don't have that, or forward brake reverse. So you go forward, brake, let go, reverse, which is what these have. But you can change this between forward reverse and forward brake reverse. Okay. The next one is LiPo versus nickel metal hydride. And that's for the car. I think that's just a legacy thing that these FlySky controllers have because pretty much everything is LiPo now, but it gives you low voltage cutoff. If you turn that off, you're not going to have low voltage cutoff and you could damage the LiPo in these things. And then the last two are for your drag brake settings. So you're going to have some different drag brake settings. I'll put it up over here so you can check it out, but different percentages of drag brake. On these, you're not going to really want much drag brake. On a crawler, you'll want a lot more drag brake. But yeah, awesome to see these transmitters. They feel good. They feel quality. Looks like these are going to be just 2-channel transmitters here. Some of these have 4 channels, but these ones are just going to be the 2 channels. Does look like we might be able to update some stuff at some point, so that's cool. All right, we also come with some goodies in here. Looks like we have some different pinion sizes. Hold on. Look at that. Definitely different pinion sizes and maybe a different spur size. We'll have to open it up, see if the spur is different. But that's cool that we got options right out of the box. I wonder if they're labeled. Are they labeled? Oh, I was hoping that the pinions would be labeled. They would say, oh, no. No, they don't say on them what they are. You'll just have to count those teeth. A little 2S charger. So these guys are 2S, a little hex wrench, and the Speck-B 124 2-wheel drive. Oh, there we go. There's our parameter settings. Look at that. Bam. 0, 75, 50, and 100%. And then just a bunch of other good info in here. There should be an exploded view in the back showing you every part in this buggy. So if you want to dive into that, you can. If you need to buy replacement parts, they're available. Super awesome. All right, let's get the bodies off. Well, that's unfortunate. Looks like our Velcro already came off. Oh, same thing on this guy. Might want to put a little tab of super glue on these if they keep coming off on you. Just a little bit, no biggie. But it is Velcro, which is awesome. But look at this. Oh, man. Wow, and there's like no play in the steering. So one of the problems with the low C Micro B is there's a ton of play in the steering in the low C Micro B. And this has like none. Just like the tiniest bit right there. But usually there's a ton of play in this like steering rack up here, and the drag link and all that. There is a servo saver on there, but man, that feels really good. Nice and tight in there. Not tight like binding tight, but like nice and tight tolerances. I love these little red accents. Does this guy have them too? Yeah, they both have little red accents. So these guys are going to be the exact same, just different bodies. And yeah, we'll set this guy aside. But look at that. There's our receiver and ESC. It's actually a 2-in-1 ESC combo. 2S LiPo, 5 volt, 1 amp BEC for the servo. Little servo underneath there. We'll open this all up. Very cool. I like the red motor plate there. Buttery smooth. Feels like we have some resistance in the diff. There's probably some diff oil in there, which makes sense. Some adjustable. What is that? Oh, hold on. These little clips here. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's awesome. So these little clips come back, and then this will just fold out. Oh, it actually just pulls off. Oh, dude, that's so cool. So you can pull the whole deck off with these little tray flippy clips here. That's cool. And then your battery comes right out. Maybe right out. Oh, there we go. It's just nice and tight in there, so you're not moving around. But that's cool, and that, yeah, those are adjustments back there for the battery tray. So if you have a little bit larger battery, you can slide that back and get a little bit more room for the battery. The battery is a 350 milliamp hour 2S. I don't see the C rating on there, but yeah, nice little battery. That's cool. It does use the JST-PH 2.0 plug, so basically the same as like an SCX24 or the low-C Micro-B. So that's cool. There's our little motor in there, an 030 63 turn. This thing is looking good, guys. It's an aluminum chassis, plastic rails, oil-filled shocks. Nice and splatty. Doesn't bounce. It's not bouncing around. It's just nice and dampened. Awesome. Awesome. Cool design though. I like that the battery is super easy to access. Oh, looky here. Also, this plug. So this plug does dual function. This plug is going to act as a power source for your transponder. So if you have some of the lap counter transponders like an Easy Lap or things like that, you can make a little adapter, plug it in, right there, no soldering required. On the low-C Micro-Bs, you actually have to open up the ESC and solder the transponder somewhere into the ESC, either where the leads come in for the battery leads, actually over here, or on the servo. A lot of people do it on the servo, positive and negative, because that's kind of an easier spot to reach. But on this guy, you're going to have a power source right there. Also, I believe you're going to be able to use this to go brushless. So this plug will actually be your channel 2, and you will be able to plug in a brushless ESC and bypass the ESC here and just use it as a receiver. So we'll probably try to test that out at some point. I don't know if we'll go full brushless, but we'll plug in an ESC on here and see if that's exactly what that does. But I believe that's what that's going to be. That's going to be awesome. Seems like we have a good sized servo down in there. We'll open that up and we'll check it out. We're going to open this guy up and check it out and show you everything. But yeah, freaking sweet. I'm excited to have a competitor to the low-C Micro-B. They kind of hit the market, blew up. We got people racing them locally. We race them on RCP track. Some people race them on carpet. Some people race them on really packed clay or dirt. But yeah, it's really cool to see these little guys get racing. It's definitely a good entry level for new people and even experienced people. Like they're just, you can pack so much power into them, especially if you start to go brushless and do crazy stuff like that. And they handle so well. Like these little cars are just amazing on these tracks. So it's gonna be cool to see how well these guys do. And yeah, it's going to be awesome to see what the aftermarket brings. I know there's going to be people out there making upgrade parts for this stuff, and yeah, it'll be awesome. Hopefully, we'll be able to swap some wheels and tires around because there's a ton of different Proline tires, and that would be nice to see for sure. Yeah, our diff feels a little tight here. Probably just needs to get broken in. So we'll run these guys a little bit later, and at the end we'll give you our full thoughts. But yeah, let's go ahead and start. I guess we can start opening it up, start showing you the insides. You can always use the chapters down below if you want to skip to a specific part. But yeah, if you want to see what this thing is made of, let's go ahead and open it up. We'll go ahead and pull off some wheels, pull off a shock. We'll pull the servo out and check that out, and then we'll open up the whole transmission and show you inside there. Actually, before we go ahead and open this up, let's go ahead and turn it on just so we can kind of see it run a little bit here on the bench. It does use 4 AAAs in the transmitter. Boom, there we go. Again, your JST-PH 2.0 plugs in here. Now, I just want to point this out because I've seen this on like the SCX24s. People will unplug the motor wire here and they're like testing things, and then they accidentally plug the battery into where the motor goes because they are the same plug. If you do that, you will fry the ESC as soon as you plug it in. You don't have to try to turn it on. As soon as you plug this guy in, fried. So do not plug in your battery into the motor port. That will be bad days. All right, there you go. Just a single press on that button. And boom, there we go. Whoa, that is a really responsive servo. That is way more power than the low-C. That's awesome. Do some pull-ups. That's awesome. And then let's see this throttle here. Got a little bit of drag brake in there, it feels like. I don't know. You always want to make sure that all of your wheels are nice and free. See this? It just spins. It's on bearings. The whole thing is on bearings. There's no bushings anywhere. So we got a little bit of back and forth slap. It's not really slop, but you can see it's in the axle shaft there. But what that's telling me is that there's no binding in the bearings for the wheels to the hubs to the bearings. So that's good. Ooh, yeah. Let's feel this diff. Diff's a little tight in there. I think it just needs rain. Ooh, a little balloonage. A little tiny baby balloon. It also sounds kind of like the mesh is a little high. Hold on. Let's check this one. All right, so here's this guy. We got a little bit of a different sound to him. Just trying to see if I could have it sit up and try. Let's try this. Wonder if it's the body. Let's pull the body off. This one sounds faster. This one might be a little faster. Either way, they sound like they're going to be quick. Look at that balloonage. All right. So there you go. There you have it. Like I said, if you want to turn them down, you're running with the kiddo, you can turn the door right down. See that? And now it's a lot more manageable, controllable. You have granular control over that, which is super nice. To kind of adjust it to your driving even. If you're racing and you just feel like it's a little too fast for the track you're on, you can always turn that down just a little bit, give you a little bit better control. Same with that steering. If you got too much steering, you can turn that guy down. And now your max steering is a lot less. Very cool. Seems like we got a decent amount of steering there. And it looks like it's equal. I know the Losi had a major problem where it steered a lot more one direction than the other. So that's not... That looks pretty good. Are we at max? Let's just make sure we're on max steering. Yep, we are. So it looks like our trim might be just off a tad. There we go. Full left, full right. I mean, that's going to be plenty. And it looks equal on both sides, so that's nice. Also, in these transmitters, I believe there is a way to set your endpoints. I'm probably not going to dive into it in this video. Maybe check out one of my other deeper dive videos on these transmitters. Now, this is a slightly different transmitter than them because it's a 2-channel versus a 4-channel. But it might still work. You have to do it double-clicking this and... Uh-oh, maybe not. You might not be able to, because usually when you double-click that, it'll pop up and start blinking, and that tells you you're in the adjustment mode to change your endpoints. But I don't think we got it here. But I bet you could bind any existing transmitter if you have another Hobby Plus vehicle that's got this transmitter to this, and then get your endpoints. I also think that this transmitter might be something we want to look at. This will bind to this. This has multiple models. I'm not sure. I don't remember how many. We'll have to look at some point. Oh, there's some specs for you. It's all in Chinese, though. Oh, here we go. Doesn't say the number of models. Either way, multiple models on this guy. Tons of tunability, so maybe you'll use that. But these transmitters, fantastic for RTR. Really good. Fun. I am excited to get these on the track. All right, let's go ahead and open them up now. I will open them up, show you all the different parts, and then we will also go through and I'll compare it to Losi Micro B. I'll go get my Micro B and probably a Mini Z and just compare some size stuff to some other rigs that people are very familiar with. And yeah, we'll check it out. All right, first thing we're gonna do is pull off these wheels, measure these hexes for you. These should be the exact same as what's on the Losi Micro B. They're 7mm hexes, so you could throw some SCX 24 1.0 wheels on there if you want to put some crawler wheels on. Let's see the depth of these hexes. Don't lose your axle shaft pins here because they are super tiny. Come on out, friend. There we go. Our depth on our hex here is going to be 3mm. Go ahead and measure our tires. The rears looks like we're going to be right at 30. 34 and a half. Yeah, 34 and a half by 18, 17 and a half, 18, closer to 18 here. Fronts, 32 and a half by 11, 10 and a half, closer to 11 here. So that's cool. You do use a 4mm for these hex nuts, for your wheel nuts. And the whole car, pretty much, as far as I can tell, is going to be a 1.5mm. So that's going to get you all this. Even the ball joints here are 1.5s. So that's awesome if all that stays consistent. That way you only really need 2 tools here. Should be good if that's the case. All right. So again, little hexes, axle shaft pins, and our axles. Let's go ahead and measure these axles just so you have the numbers in case you want them. 3mm, front and rear. And the actual threading there is going to be 1.7. So it's going to be an M2 screw or nut. Very cool. So yeah, we can't get those axle shafts out without pulling off the actual C-hub here, or the knuckle. But there you go. You can see the bearings there. Very nice. Let's see. Can I get them out real quick? Trying to see if I can pull out a bearing without pulling off this whole C-hub, so we can measure that. Bearings on the front and rear of the knuckle. 6mm, 2.5, and then that inner is going to be 3. So 6, 3, and then 2.5. Looks like our shocks, we do have 2 shock adjustments there. So if you want to adjust the angle of your shock, you can do that on your upper tower, and then also down here on your A-arm, there's 2, so you can move them out if you'd like. In, adjust your angle, move it forward, backward, whatever. These are very short shocks here compared to the rear. Looks like we have a ton of travel in the rear. Not quite as much on the front. So that's interesting. I kind of think we needed a little bit longer shocks in the front, but we'll see. We'll see how it handles. It's pretty interesting how they did their drag link and steering rack here. It's very angled, kind of very angled downward. Kind of feel like it would do better to have a little bit of spacer under here and raise that ball joint, or just a longer ball joint, to try to get this closer to 90 degrees, so we have equal steering left and right. Because the less the servo horn and the drag link are 90 degrees to each other, right? Like it goes straight up and over like that. You kind of want your steering horn and your drag link to be totally like this, totally perpendicular. And that would put us like kind of right there. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of hard to see, but if I turn this a little, like that makes this and the steering drag link perpendicular, you can see our steering angle is going to be just a little off. And usually you want to be able to have it like that with the steering totally straight, and that'll give you completely equal steering left and right. But again, under a real world use case, it seemed fine. But I do kind of wish that this was up just a little higher, just to help make that perpendicular. Or you could even shorten it just a little bit, so that while this is perpendicular like that, again, the steering horn, again, the servo horn has to be a little bit at an angle, just because of the way the geometry is here. But then you would have to shorten up this drag link, which probably wouldn't be ideal either, because then it would be at even more of an angle. I don't know. Either way, it seems fine. I'm not too worried about it. I'm just looking at proper geometries here for the steering. And it's interesting that it faces up. I think the low-C is the opposite, so we might be able to compare that later, where the low-C servo horn goes down, and it's on the lower side. I think the servo actually sits kind of up at an angle like this to make room for the servo horn to be underneath. I don't remember. We'll look. All right, let's go ahead and pull this out, though. So we should be able to just pull this upper deck off and get to that servo. There we go. It falls right off. Digital servo. I don't know if this is Metal Gear or not. Oh, does that fit in there? That'd be nice if we could get it to fit, so I could get that servo out. Oh, barely. Kind of push up on that link a little, but I think we can get it. Yeah, just got to put a little pressure on that link. that gets us straight to our screw. That's nice. And this side, yes, I like that. I like that we basically have access to that. We don't have to take anything apart to get the servo out. You could always pull off these screws on the bottom of the chassis as well and pull out the whole servo mount if you needed to, but let's get this out and I'll get you some dimensions on it. So there we go. There's the part number on it. Looks like the servo size is going to be 21 by 17 by 11.5. Now, eye to eye for the mounting, center to center, looks like we're going to be right at 26. Yeah, 26. And then let's just do that from the rear of the servo all the way to the front of the servo horn. Boom. 30 millimeters. If you go to the gear here, just the top of the casing and that gear, looks like we're going to be at 20 millimeters. Just so you kind of have all the dimensions in case you want to replace the servo on this guy. I don't know if I want to open this up. I kind of do. It looks like it's a plastic gear. My guess is this is going to be all plastic gears in here. We can check. We can check. Let's check real quick. It's interesting. It's only 2 screws holding that together. Not going to pull it all the way apart, but yes, I can see down in there. Everything except the main pinion on the main motor here is going to be plastic gears, which again, it's fine. This is a RTR. It's going to be around $100 for this thing. Again, you can always check the link down in the description below for current pricing. I don't really like to talk about pricing because it seems like it always changes on different platforms and depending on where you buy it and stuff. But we will have a link down in the description below and you can see what the current pricing is. And I know it's going to be very competitive, so that's awesome. And yeah, I wouldn't expect full metal gear, high torque servo here on this guy. It seems like it's plenty fast though. Again, it's definitely better than the Losi when it comes to just the torque and the speed of the servo. So I'm not overly worried there. The servo saver is going to help save those plastic gears. It doesn't seem like it's overly tight, that servo saver. You can see I maxed out the servo, put a little bit of pressure on there. You can kind of see it lift up just a little, not a ton, but it is there. So a little bit of give, which is nice. All right, let's go ahead and move on from there. What's next? And really cool that this whole thing just pops right out. Battery, there you go. It's a very simple, clean design. I really dig that. Trying to see what these little spots are here. Like there's no screw that goes in there. I wonder what that's for. I wonder what that's about. Yeah, nice and free. And the steering, it's crazy. It's like, look, free enough to just flop over from the weight of the wheel. So no binding. But again, with no binding, usually that means there's play in there because it's either you have binding because it's nice and tight, there's a little bit of binding, or you have like no binding and there's a bunch of slop. But this feels like there is like no slop. I already said that, but that impresses me, especially with how loose that is. Freaking awesome. Okay. Love this little tray thing. I know I've already said that too, but I just like to reiterate. All right, let's go ahead and pull this whole rear end off. The whole thing. We're just going to pull this off. I'm going to use these 4 screws. And we'll see if I can just drop, see what happens if we pull these 4 screws out. Should drop the transmission. Oh, these are different lengths. Okay, we need to keep an eye on that. Let's definitely organize our stuff a little here. Always try to keep things organized. When you are taking apart new RC cars, you don't want to mix up your screw lengths. All right, so this rear bumper is going to pull right out, and that'll get you to your AR or your pivot pins. But even without doing that, if we just leave that kind of in there, hopefully we don't lose too much here. Should be able to drop this whole thing out just like that. And then yes, our rear and front pivot pin retainers, pivot blocks, pivot pins. Here. Some people might want to know this, just for replacement purposes if they get bent. 2 millimeters by 22 millimeters. Our dog bones, look at that. Let's go ahead and look at these pin to pin on the dog bones, 26.5 pin to pin. And the length of that pin is 5. And the shaft diameter is 2. So you have those numbers. Yeah, and then we can just pull off our link, our shock. Let's do this side too. Pull off our link. Oh, it's going to be a little harder because the transmission housing is right there. Oof. It's tight. It's tight right there with that transmission cover. There's that whole rear assembly. Super simple. Now you can pull off this cover without pulling all this out. If this was all still mounted in here, it's just 2 screws, and you have to loosen these 2 screws, slide this out, and you can pull off the entire transmission cover here. So that's pretty simple, easy access there. And there we go. So we have a 12 tooth. Yeah, 12 tooth. Looks like it's mod 4, I believe. I'm not totally sure on that. And then our spur. So I'm kind of curious if the spur that comes with is different. Let's see. We can also pull the spur off. It's the same 4mm little nut there. And that guy pulls right out. And then this is actually really cool too. So look at this. Hold on. I'm going to pull this whole thing apart here. So this motor mount is really cool because it allows you to pull the motor out without having to pull the pinion. So check this out. Cool design for sure. So see, we can't get the pinion out, right? Like it's too big for that slot, but that's where there's this little slot here. You can just slide this out and boom, there you go. Super cool. I dig that. And then we've got adjustability right there, right? So we can adjust our mesh. Awesome job. So here's the pinion and spurs that came in the box. Let's see. I wish there were numbers on here. There's a B and an A. It doesn't say, but that is definitely a smaller spur. I guess I'll count these guys for you real quick.
A few moments later.
All right, what I do for you guys, I went ahead and counted every single one of these little teeth. The A is a 45 tooth spur. The B is a 42 tooth spur. Okay, and then our motor is a 12 tooth pinion. You can kind of see the little 2 right there. Whereas these guys are, well, I guess the number doesn't matter because this guy is a 13 and it's marked as a 1. And this guy is an 11 and it's marked with a 3. They should have marked them the other way. This should have been marked a 1, 2, and 3. That way there's an 11, 12, and 13. I don't know why they marked them that way. I guess it's just the number of the gear, but come on, guys. Come on. All right, anyway, so we do have some options, which is super awesome. You can definitely get some high speed if you go with this smaller spur and the larger pinion. That's really going to make this thing rip. You might heat up your motor and stuff, but I mean, it's going to rip for sure. All right, let me go ahead and open up this transmission next. Let me clear out some of this. All right. So let's go ahead and try to open this gap. It looks like we are going to have to pull off quite a few screws here. So obviously the motor plate had to come off. I had those 2 long screws going through here and here. But then we've got this long screw here. It's holding the rear wing on. And then I think we have to pull the entire shock tower as well to get this guy to come apart, which is totally fine because you shouldn't need to be opening up your transmission and diff too often. It's not like it's a totally regular maintenance thing. If you're racing a lot, you might, but I wouldn't stress on it too much. Let's see here. There we go. Our Velcro is going to be holding it on. That's okay. We can reaffix that. And this should just pull right apart. I don't think there's any other screws. Yeah, there we go. Should these cups come out? No. So we do have some grease in there. It looks like it could have been applied a little better maybe. It's on the gears. It's on the gears. We're good. There you go. Pull diff out. There's the actual, just like the transmission gearing there. Pretty straightforward and simple. All bearings, which is nice. Okay, super simple. I love that. And then our nice metal diff here. It does feel a little crunchy in there. Just a little bit. You kind of hear it click. Hold on. Yeah. I think that just needs to be broken in. Let's go ahead and pull our bearings off here. The housing is plastic. It's got 3 little Phillips head screws, which is pretty standard because these screws are tiny to have these be Phillips. These are probably the only Phillips on the whole thing that I can think of. Yeah, should be. Yeah. Even the servo horn is a hex head, so that's nice. All right, so we can get this cap off now. There we go. Oh, look at that little gasket in there. Oh, that's awesome. So that's going to help keep our diff fluid from leaking out. Looks like it's pretty thick in there, though. Pretty thick. And there you go. You can see the planetary gears in there. Planetary gears are the little ones, and they go around or spin around this big one here, which is your sun gear. So this guy spins. Feels like there's a little bit of resistance in there. Just a little bit. Are there not bearings in this? Oh, I guess there's not bearings in there. It's just an O-ring. Oh, no, there is a bearing. How does this come apart? Let's see. Is that a Phillips 2? Yeah, it's a Phillips 2. Ooh, man, that is tight. All right, so another little tiny Phillips. Get that guy out. And then our dog bone cups should come out. Maybe. There we go. Just use some flush cuts to kind of pull that out. Oh, those aren't bearings. It's just the actual keyed portion of the sun gear. There's also a little shim in there in that washer. Yeah, well, that's good. But it is sitting on this diff with no bearing. And it does feel like there's a little bit of resistance in there. I think that just needs to break in. Like once this breaks in, on a bigger diff, you would have a bearing right there. But on these guys, because it's just running on the plastic, I think it'll just break in over time, no problem. I'm not really worried about that at all. You know, this side's going to be the exact same. Let's go ahead and pull out all of our little planetary gears here. So tiny, guys. So tiny. There you go. And there's that side too. And yeah, that felt a little stiff as well. But again, I think it's gonna break in over time. This little, oh, it's not that bad. It's actually more the cup that's just kind of tight. So as long as that cup has pressure on it, I think you'll be fine. It needs to stay nice and flush like that. That way the cup, because the cup is a little bit larger than that portion of the gear where I say a bearing would be. And that feels pretty good right there, actually. So maybe it was just that the cup was pushed out a little bit on the other side. The first one we looked at, this guy here, I might have pushed it out just a little bit and got, oh yeah, that's okay. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, I might have pushed it out just kind of a little bit there. But when you pull it back in, when there's pressure on it, see how there's a little bit of gap there? It's nice and free. So that's good. Awesome. That's not an issue. Let me go ahead and get our screws back in. It does still feel a little chunky in there, a little crunchy, just a tad bit. But I think that'll break in over time. I'm not overly worried about that. Oh wait, we need to get our screw back in there. We almost missed our screw, guys. That would have been no good. Nice. I do want to point out that as you're putting this back together, if you take it apart, Do not over tighten these screws. Just get them barely snug enough. Again, you're going into plastic. You don't want to strip anything out. Also, if you over tighten it, then it will be super crunchy. If you feel like it's a little too much, just back them off just a little bit. Maybe a half turn, quarter turn. Again, they don't need to be super tight. It's not going anywhere. The screws aren't going to back out. And over tightening it, like I said, you'll either strip it out or you'll cause too much pressure on the planetary gears from the sun gears, and it'll feel really bad. So yeah, that's better. Don't over tighten that. And then also, obviously, when you're putting this transmission back together, don't over tighten the screws into that either, because you could bind things up. Again, you're going into plastic. It's not like the screws are going to back out. If you were going into a metal transmission housing, then I would say, just use Loctite. Still don't over tighten, but you can use Loctite. And yeah, that's nice and smooth there. Well, that feels really good. But yeah, into plastic, don't over tighten. It's kind of hard to feel it. Where's my dog bone? Where's my dog bones at? Cool. All right, let's get our screws in and get this transmission all back in. I love that this thing is totally legit. Like, it's not toy grade at all. It's a serious piece of equipment here. Like, got nice gear transmission set up, quality diff. Like, I'm digging that. It's not just, again, just a quick toy. It's something that you can actually get it to race. You can get it and be competitive with it. I think it's going to be awesome. It might take some tweaking here and there depending on what kind of track you're running on, but the fact that it's all metal gears, bearings, like super quality diff, like I dig that. I think it's super important for any kind of RC that you're going to race to be fully replaceable parts and easy to work on. This thing is super easy to work on. I think that's super important. So I'm digging that. I am digging that for sure. Like, their design choices were really good in a lot of this. Just for, again, ease of use. You don't have to take the whole rear apart to get this motor out, or to get the, you don't have to pull the pinion to get the motor out if you don't want to. Just pull the motor plate off. Super simple. Like I said, everything feels pretty good in there. I think it just needs to be ran a little bit. Again, this is brand new. We haven't ran it once. Like most cars, you run them quite a bit before they get nice and loosed up and feeling super buttery smooth. This guy is straight from the factory, so it's kind of what I would expect. Except after a couple packs through it, I think it's going to be even more buttery smooth. Yeah, that's awesome. I want to show you the meshing here. So when you're putting your motor back in, or putting your spur back on, make sure your spur is nice and tight with the nut first. Not overly tight. Again, it should move freely. And then when you're doing your mesh, you should have just the tiniest bit of play there. See that? Just a little bit. Just a little back and forth clicking. I hold this pinion and I can move the spur just a little bit. And that'll make it nice and smooth, and it'll make it quiet. You'll have less wear on your gears. Again, you don't want too much. This is almost too much play, barely. But, as you tighten these screws, it likes to move in and out. I had to hold this out really tight, trying to keep it from pushing itself back in. But yeah, that'll get you there. Does not take much, especially on these little cars. Remember, on these tiny cars, millimeters are like inches, right? Because they're just so small. But man, that feels so buttery smooth now. I did feel like there was a little bit of crunch at one point, like it was like you'd run it and you could feel just like a little grind, just like a little bit. But back, putting it back together, made sure I had a good mesh here, and now it's like it's smooth the whole way. Yeah, that's super important. If you mess with that, make sure your mesh is good. Otherwise, you could heat up your motor, burn up your electronics, mess up your gears, it'll wear them down premature, all that stuff. All right. I do love how simple this thing is. It's just like, it's so easy to work on, especially being small, right? The smaller it is, the less complicated you want it to be, because you don't want to be working with a bunch of tiny little screws, and just makes it more difficult. So I like that this very simple design, very easy to work on, especially for somebody newer, first time ever getting any kind of like race style RC. This is a good option. Putting the transmission in, you can pretty much tighten these guys all the way down. You don't have to. It might be a little easier if you don't on this front pivot block, but this guy will just slide in there. So you can tighten it up pretty good, but I'm going to leave mine just a little loose, not too crazy, just a little bit. And then we can go ahead and throw in our pivot pins and our A-arms here, just like so. And then we can drop our rear pivot block on there. Okay, and tighten her all up. So getting this upper link back on this ball joint is proving to be kind of a pain, so I took the 2 screws out of this transmission cover, and we're just going to kind of pull it out a little bit, pull it forward, make some space in there so that we can get that back on there. Don't forget your dog bone, and then you should be able to get it in there, and you'll probably have to use some pliers. You might be able to use just your fingers. It's kind of tight to push on there, but I'm probably going to use some pliers here. It's kind of hard to keep it all together, though. There we go. Super tight in there, just with this in the way. Like, you can't even really get the link under there, so you're probably going to have to pull this off if you ever want to put that on, or pull off the whole, again, the 4 screws here to pull that all back, and then you can get that clipped on there. But 2 screws is less than 4, so we went that direction. So while we have all this taken apart here, I wanted to check the axle shafts and whatnot and see how they compared to the Locy's. So here we are. You can see the rear kind of cup shaft. The bottom is the Locy, the top is the Hobby Plus. So it's kind of hard to see, but if I was to align the shaft pinhole, see, like right about there, they're aligned. You can see there's just a little bit of space on the Locy, which is on this side. And the cup is just a little smaller. Not much, but a little. But it does fit. I put it in there. The only thing you get is just a tiny bit of play because the space between the pin and the cup is a little bit more. But you can use the same pin, the same hex hub. The Locy hex hubs are basically the exact same. See that? But you get this little bit of play here because that pin hole, the axle shaft pin hole, is a little further apart. So you get this little bit of play here. But you could easily shim that out. So if for some reason you wanted to get Locy replacement rear axles, you could do that. You would just need to, like a 0.1, 0.2, maybe even a 0.5 millimeter shim on either side, maybe one on each side, or depending on how you want to do it. And you'd be able to make them work, no problem. Now the fronts are pretty much spot on. So here's the fronts. They're so tiny. If you line up kind of the bottom here where it would push up against the bearing, right there, you can see the axle shaft pins are in the same spot pretty much. The only thing is the Locy is a little bit less threading, just a little bit, but it also still works, which is awesome because there are 3Flow9 axle shafts that are titanium. So if you're looking for some replacement lightweight, lessen your rotating mass, not much, but I mean, every little bit helps. Plus, you want to bling it out, support an awesome company. 3Flow9 makes these axle shafts for the Locy, and they'll also work in this. So very cool to see that some of this stuff is cross-compatible. I think the bearings and stuff also, you can be able to swap those over if you need to. I believe, I'm not 100%, I didn't check, but there's going to be some stuff that is shared, which is very cool. Like I said, I hope to see more companies kind of making upgrade parts for these guys, both platforms really. And then we've got the Locy dog bones versus the Hobby Plus dog bones. They are literally like 1 millimeter shorter, the Locy here. So they could probably work. I mean, the cups are plenty long on this guy here. So I don't see any reason why the Locy dog bones wouldn't work. Because like I said, they're plenty long. As long as it's going to depend on how much travel you have. If you have too much travel, you might start hitting the actual shaft. But you should be good. So worth trying. If you ever break a dog bone, you could probably replace it with a Locy dog bone if you needed. Again, they're just a millimeter shorter. So really not much when you get into it, especially if you split the difference between each side. It's not much of a difference at all. See there. Cool. I'm kind of assuming the shocks are also going to kind of swap over. I can pull a shock off real quick. So here's one of our low-C rigs. Let's see. Can we just pop this off? If the ball joint sizes are the same, then we should be golden. They are much longer. Is this the rear? Yeah, on the rear of the Hobby Plus. Actually, I'll have to see what the rear of the low-C looks like. But yeah, ball joint should be good, so we should be able to swap things around if you want to there as well. I think. Let me measure. Let me measure before I force it. 0.275. 0.275, so, or 2.75, so we should be good. It's just looking a little, feeling a little tight when I try to push it on, but I think we're golden. Oh yeah, we're good. We're good, we're good. Now as far as lengths, let me go ahead and, I guess I'll pull the front off here and a front off here. I just don't want to get them mixed up here. Oh yeah, these have the preload colors, which is nice. The low-Cs do not. You have to put in little spacers. So on the Hobby Plus, we have an actual preload collar, which is awesome. Actually, that's a rear. Oh yeah, that's why it's longer, of course. Oh, you know what? You have to pull the screw to do that. That's okay. So I found some different size screws. These are 050 or 1.3. I don't know if 1.3 will fit. Let's see. Yeah, 1.3 fits as well for both this pin screw and the shock shaft or shock end joint. Shock mount screw. These shouldered screws. They are not 1.5s, so that's good to know. But we should be able to pull this guy out now. There we go. Same as the low-C shock as far as being a little ball joint built into the shock. And they look like, now the low-C looks like it's going to be a little bit shorter on both. The rear is really long on the Hobby Plus. Let's go ahead and measure this out for you. So at full extension, the Hobby Plus shocks, center eye to center eye, 41 millimeters. That is long. The low-C is much shorter. Looks like we're right at 35. So 6 millimeters longer on the rears. That's pretty wild, actually. That's why it has so much travel in that rear. And then let's see our fronts here. The Hobby Plus front shock, 34. Yeah, we'll call that 34. And the low-C, 32. So 2 millimeters longer on the Hobby Plus fronts. Interesting. I almost feel like you could do the low-C rears in the front, and you'd have a much closer travel length for the front and the rear on this. Because right now, the fronts versus the rear are dramatically different. Oh, we have the shock on the wrong side. I was like, hold on, that's moving more than it should. Oh man, of course. But you can see, like, there's a lot of droop out that you could have here, but the shock is limiting it because it's so short in the front. That's okay. At least we have options. So you just know that, like, you can get aftermarket low-C shocks, and they'll should fit right in, no problem. Again, they're the same ball joint size, same here, and just use maybe the rears on the front, or mix it up however you see fit for your driving style, the type of terrain you're driving on, because again, depending on the kind of terrain you're on is going to kind of change your setup as well. Just kind of feeling these. The Hobby Plus shocks are actually really smooth. One's got a little bit of a bubble in there, I think, but this front shock is just like buttery. The low-C's pretty close, but you can kind of feel some crunchy in there, just a little tiny bit. But I love that these have preload shock collars, so you don't have to use spacers. You can actually just fine-tune adjust it, which is awesome for your ride height and droop and whatnot. But there you go. I guess I could show you compressed as well. Let's go ahead and get those numbers. So Hobby Plus full compression. Yeah, I'd call it 30 on the rear, compressed. Front, yeah, 27. Almost 27 and a half, but, and then the low-C's just to compare. Full compression on the rear, 27. The rear compresses almost as much as the front on the Hobby Plus. That's crazy. 28 really. So 28 on the rear compressed, and yeah, we'll call it 25 compressed on the front. So a big difference in the shock lengths for sure. All right, we got it all back together. Just want to kind of show you its natural state ride height here. It's kind of hard. We got a little dip in our mat, this kind of ridge thing, but that's fine. You can kind of still get the idea. That's kind of where it naturally sits. It does seem to ride a little higher in the rear, a little bit, and there's a lot more droop in the rear. See that? Droop is where it naturally sits, and then when you lift up, however far it falls from its natural resting, that drop out is your droop. The front has almost no droop. Look at that. If I lift it, no droop at all. So again, I kind of wish there was a little bit more travel in that front end, but it's not a big deal. And then here we can compare it to the Losi. There's the Micro B. You can see it's got a little bit more droop in the front. Not much, but it does. So if you put them like this, let them sit in their natural state. And again, with the body, they're going to be a little bit heavier even. But you can see there's like no weight on there. So I let them kind of rest, and then you can see I'll pick up the Losi. It's got a little bit of dropout, just a little bit. Not much. And then the Hobby Plus has none. It's very stiff right there. I think it either needs softer springs or, again, just a little bit longer travel in that suspension. Either way, they're similar, comparable. I do think that this needs to be a little lower in the back. And again, like I said, just a little bit longer travel in the front. But you can set it up how you want to set it up. Once you get it, you can always adjust the shocks a little bit. You can always adjust your shock oil. You could always get different springs or different shocks in general. Even Next Racing makes Micro B shocks, so you can check out Next Racing. I actually have some on this truck here. You can see they got some really quality Micro B shocks, and those things will work perfect on this guy. Again, they're going to be a little shorter overall than these, but you don't need a ton of travel, especially if you're racing on like carpet or RCP track. If you're out in the dirt, maybe that's a little different. Then you might want a little bit higher ride height, a little bit longer travel in the suspension, but these aren't rock crawlers, right? You want them low, you want them nimble, you want them stable, and the lower the better, kind of in that regard. Not totally bottomed out, obviously, but a little bit lower would be better. You want just enough for the chassis to roll a little bit and not slam every time you kind of come down, but that front's a little, like I said, a little stiff, a little lacking in travel compared to the Losi. You can see the Losi when you pick it up, they kind of drop down, right? They're straight and they drop down. Whereas this guy, pretty much, they're as down as they're going to get. Anyway, I just wanted to compare that. Let's go ahead and compare it to some other rigs. Actually, before we do that, I wanted to show you these awesome Radianz bodies. Look at this. We have like a trophy truck style body. These are for the Micro B. There's this Beetle. We have this Beetle too. And then like a Truggy. There's a couple others, I believe. But these are for the Micro B. They come with mounts that are for the Micro B. And you can see this one's got the Buggy or the Beetle mounts on it. But how cool is that? Hopefully they'll also make some mounts for this guy. I don't know if the mounts will work directly or not. Probably not. They probably need to be adjusted. Well, maybe. They look close. They look close. The front. Oh, no, I think they're going to need different mounts. But either way, there are body options out there, which is awesome. Again, these are by Radianz. They're painted up. And I think Next Racing is who's making the actual clear Lex ends. So definitely worth checking out if you're looking for some cool bodies. Trophy truck would be awesome. The wings in the way, but you get the idea. Let's go. How cool is that? Fun, right? Truggy style. Actually, this is Truggy with the wings, so it would work. It's even got the cutouts or the raised portion for the shock tower. And you just need a front mount. Sit a little lower, maybe. The bug. It's not going to work because of the wing, but you get the idea. Very cool. All right, we'll go ahead and start comparing it to a bunch of stuff. Obviously, the very first thing is going to be the Micro B. The Losi Micro B is almost the exact same as far as the track width and the overall wheelbase length. it's pretty much the exact same. It's not the same as far as designs are concerned. Like it's its own unique design. Even the chassis is different, but it is meant to compete with it. So of course they're all going to be, it's going to be the same dimensions and whatnot. You can see kind of how the motor and transmission sits. They're very similar. It's a mid motor, not a rear motor. Like I said, there's a lot of play in the steering on this guy. See that? A lot. Whereas on this, it's very minimal. Okay, and that's going, most of that, any of that play is hitting all the way to the servo, whereas this is like, it's play that's happening all the way up in here and on the steering rack before it even gets to the servo. See that? Anyway, so very, very similar vehicles. They're going to basically compete directly. Hopefully some companies come up with some aftermarket parts, like I said. I know Nex is probably working on some stuff. Some of the other aftermarket stuff for the Micro B will already work on this, like we said, the axle shafts and whatnot. Maybe Vast RC, these guys, this is all Vast RC stuff, these chassis protector. They actually even have this titanium chassis that we got sent. Hold on, it's a +5. This is a little bit longer chassis than stock, so it lengthens your wheelbase by 5 millimeters, again, for the Micro B, but maybe they'll do something similar for the Speck-B, which would be very cool to see. Again, this wing, shock towers, the A-arms, that's all this low riser deck, which is super nice. All that stuff is Vast RCX. Okay. The next thing is going to be the Micro T. Again, we have a trophy truck body on here, same as the Micro B, but shorter wheelbase and uses the fatty rears on the front as well. Again, we have it set up as a trophy truck, but you can see the wheelbase difference there between the Micro T, Micro B, or Speck-B sizes. Same width, all the same stuff as far as the back is concerned. And the width, all that stuff is the same as the Micro B, just shorter. And so in that sense, it's just going to be a little bit shorter than the Speck-B. Micro B knockoff from WL Toys, basically the exact same thing as the Micro B, but friction damping shocks and stuff like that. Not really, it doesn't have very good steering and electronics. It's not the best, but they're super cheap. But I think you'd spend a little bit more for either the Micro B or this guy. And like I said, I think this guy's quality is just kind of a notch above the Micro B and way ahead of what this guy's. But these are really cool, but they're the same wheelbase and width and all that kind of stuff. It's like I said, it's basically a knockoff of the Micro B. It's exact same parts. Almost everything's interchangeable. So, and actually, I think the dog bones on here are just a tad longer than the Micro B. So in that sense, those dog bones might work even better in there. Next up is WL Toys. So this is a WL Toys Buggy. It's all-wheel drive, a little bit shorter. I think this is considered a 128, kind of like a Mini Z, which we also have. Mini Z Buggy. So these are kind of competitors to each other here. Very similar length, but definitely shorter. And again, these are all-wheel drive. The performance is very different compared to something like this. These are definitely more race. These are more kind of fun basher, race bashers. You're not really bashing on like a traditional basher, but these guys, they're not quite as race-tuned and race-ready as these. And there's a little, anybody knows Minis, these are a little toy grade, and the WL Toys is kind of lacking in aftermarket upgrades. But those are, there you go, compared there. Very, very similar. Okay. Here's an old Losi Micro. Way back in the day, a little bit shorter. Again, I think these are closer to 128, and these are 124. Very cool though. Here's something neat. This is the Next Racing conversion kit. So you take a Losi Micro B and convert it into an on-road car. So basically it just swaps out the chassis, but all of the A-arms and all that stuff is still the same. And so you get just a longer wheelbase. Track width is still the same, but you're able to get more of an on-road setup. I know HackFab also makes something similar. So it might be kind of cool to see HackFab or Next Racing make an on-road conversion or an oval track conversion using these, because that's just kind of what a lot of people do. They take off-road buggies and turn them into oval cars and on-road cars. And so, yeah, you end up with something kind of like this. Hell, you might even be able to use this chassis depending on where the bolts line up and whatnot and get it to, I don't know, those rear bolts on that transmission, are they the same? Very close. Maybe we'll try it at some point. I don't know about the front end, but might be able to convert it over. You want to do on-road with one of these. I'm sure you could do it with a little bit of modifying if you really wanted it. And it probably wouldn't take much to modify it, but kind of a cool setup for sure. And then these wheels and tires, they will obviously work on there as well. Much larger diameter because they're meant for kind of a bigger looking car. But yeah, same stuff. Very cool. Those are foam tires. Here's a Mini Z for anybody that knows Mini Zs, just to compare. Again, maybe you have not seen a Mini B, maybe you've not seen a Micro B or this, so this will give you kind of an idea of the size. And really, here's a Losi Mini B. You want to compare it big. This is what the 16 to 18 scale. I think they consider these 16 scale. The truck version, the Micro T, is an 18 scale, but there you go. Quite the difference. Very fun. I really like the little guys. I think you just get so much more track in a smaller space. It's hard to get a big enough track. Here we're basically running these on an outdoor track or a bigger 10 scale track. You can run these in a hobby store, which makes it a lot more approachable for a lot of stores and race clubs out there to have a smaller space where you can run these. It's a lot easier to come by. Square footage is expensive. So here's an SCX-24, a very common vehicle that people own, just to compare size so you have an idea. Track width? Sure, why not? Wider than the SCX-24, but definitely shorter in the wheelbase. And then I'd be a fool not to put it here. Let's go. Yeah! That's what we're talking about. Speck-B on the back of the Arctos. Let's go. How cool is that? We need to get our mirrors out here. Come on. Pew, pew. Yellow Arctos. Cream Speck-B. Actually, what does it look like with this guy? Sporty. Mr. Sporty himself. How fun is that, guys? Our 3-flow gnome. Let's go. Fun, fun, fun. I mean, heck, while we're at it, what about this? Bam! I don't know. It doesn't work with the hitch, but you can remove the hitch and then make that kind of a flatbed right there. And then you've got the Terranaut bringing the Speck-B to some races. Fun, 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 guys. All right, I think let's go ahead and weigh this thing out. We'll put it on the weights just so you can see the weight and the weight distribution, and then we'll go run them. All right, so here we are on the 4-corner. Looks like we're right at 174, almost 175, looks like maybe 175 grams. And then 51.49, a little bit on that side-to-side weight bias. 51.49 it looks like. And then front to rear is 41 on the front and 59 on the rear. So a little heavier on the rear there. And you just want to make sure it's sitting and settled. Yeah, 59, 41, 51, 49. And our cross weights are a little off. Might just need to adjust our shocks a little bit to get that cross weight, which is kind of your chassis tweak. But yeah, there you go. Overall weights. Pretty good, pretty good. You kind of almost want a 50-50 on here. I almost think that maybe a little bit more weight in the front would do better. Maybe? It's hard to say. But that's where we're at now. You can always tweak it later. Again, I think with some nice upgrade aftermarket stuff, you'll really be able to tweak it exactly how you want it. All right, let's go ahead and run them a little bit.
Speck-B, baby, retro body, new speed, let's go. Let's go. Slide through the lane, that 2S popping. Brush motor humming, whole squad watching. Butter smooth shocks when the jump start dropping. Tiny scale heat, but the torque ain't stopping. Circle which quick like a heartbeat race. 124 size, but it's eating the space. These wheels be ripping retro body in place. Speck-B flying, no drag, just grace.
Feel that flow, suspension glide. Every curve and turn, let it ride. Brush our racing pride. Speck-B spirit never die.
Speck-B, baby, yeah, that track machine. Many rig dreams with a 4-race lean. Feeling that rush when the tires scream. Small car, big heart, that's the Speck-B. Speck-B, baby, yeah, that track machine. Many rig dreams with a 4-race lean. Feeling that rush when the tires scream. Small car, big heart, that's the Speck-B. Corner tight lines, I'm glued to the groove. Every lap start, watch your motion smooth. Throttle tap quick, suspension in tune. When it hits the ramp, I'm touching the moon. High speed, 7, no delay in the aim. Brush motor glow with sparking that name. Hobby Plus locked in, can't tame this frame. Speck-B wild with the Speck-B, baby, yeah, that track machine. Many rig dreams with a 4-race lean. Feeling that rush when the tires scream. Small car, big heart, that's the Speck-B. Speck-B, baby, yeah, that track machine. Many rig dreams with a 4-race lean. Feeling that rush when the tires scream. Small car, big heart, that's a Speck-B thing. Speck-B, baby, track machine.
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Awesome little 124 scale Hobby Plus Speck-B little race buggy. How cool is that? I can't wait to get these onto an actual track. Unfortunately, like for the past couple weeks, our local RCP track where we race our Mini Z, where we usually race our Micro Bs, is taken over by the PN World Championship. So we have had a huge PN size track set up and no jumps, and really hasn't been a good opportunity to race these guys. So we haven't really been racing them at all. But hopefully I'll be able to show some more footage at some point. I'm sure I'll show maybe a compare video at some point or some upgrades, things of that nature. So hopefully you get to see it running on the RCP track that we have here locally. I did run it for like 2 seconds. I didn't get footage of it, but it seems like we might need to change the rear tires there, or you have to use the high grip side of the track. They definitely didn't seem to grip quite as well as the Losi Micro B rear tires. So maybe we just swap over to Losi Micro B tires. I'm not sure. We'll have to look at that, make sure they fit. I worry they are very close. I worry they might rub a little bit on the C-hubs on the rear, the Losi or Proline wheels. Worst case, you might just have to kind of sand or Dremel just a little bit of a lip off the wheel or in the inner hub. Again, maybe we'll show that in another video. This video is already long enough as it is. As you saw, we ran at the skate park instead of the racetrack, and it was fun. It was a little slippery. Again, that's really slick concrete, so these tires, they need a little bit higher traction surface for sure. Also, I kind of wonder if the setup is playing into that a little bit with the rear being a little high. It's going to cause it to kind of spin out, but it was definitely a little loose on the hard concrete of the skate park, on the street and on the sidewalk and on the tennis court. It had tons of grip, so that was awesome. And again, we just straight out of the box, throw them down and run them, no tuning or anything like that. Once you start to tune it, it's going to run a lot better for your track conditions and where you're running it and whatnot. So the rear being as high as it is definitely helped with some of the higher bumpy spots like on the road and whatnot on the asphalt. But I think for racing it, you probably want to lower that rear end a little bit, maybe raise the front end a little bit, or at least get more droop out of it. That might also help with the spinning out. Either way, it's going to be awesome to see what people do with these things. I think they're fantastic. I think the quality of this thing is amazing, especially for the price. The electronics are fantastic. I think it's a home run for Hobby Plus, especially being one of their first, non-crawler platforms. Pretty awesome. And I hope to see more stuff from Hobby Plus that is outside the crawler realm. I mean, I love my crawlers. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, we love the crawlers. But I love all the mini RC too. So little things like this just get me super, super excited. And like I said, I think this thing is hits it out of the park for sure. Definitely a good value. When you're comparing it to like the Micro B and the Mini Z smaller scale stuff. Very cool, very cool. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, I know it was a long one. Huge shout out to all of our channel members for supporting the channel. They are a huge support. Without them, this channel would probably not exist. So thank you very much to everybody that helps support the channel. Also, they get benefits and perks for being different tier channel members. They do get to see videos early before anybody else without ads. They also get behind the scenes videos every once in a while. Just kind of random videos that I post, member-specific posts, prior to comment replies, where their comments always show first to me. That's a thing that YouTube does. And we also have a Discord. If anybody wants to join the Discord, it'll be down in the description below. We also have a link to theshophobbies.com, which is just a page to show off all of our links and affiliates and communities, Facebook groups, all that kind of stuff. We don't sell anything. We're not a retailer. Don't plan on being a retailer. I just wanted to get a domain to be able to show that stuff off and have people be able to find me there as well. So definitely check that out. Also, if you are a channel member, you do have a members only channel in the Discord, but anybody can join the Discord, so you definitely should. Tons of awesome small scale mini and micro RC chat in there. People getting help and doing builds and asking questions and answering questions and showing off trucks and all kinds of cool stuff. All right, guys, I appreciate you hanging out. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, share, and hit that notification bell. All those things help support the channel, show the algorithms that you appreciate the content we create. And and they're free. So it's just a click for you, but it means the world to me. Why don't you guys put down in the comments below, if you watch the whole video, speck in the dust. Speck in the dust? I don't know. That's kind of weird. Speck of dust? Something like that. Put speck and dust. Get dusted by a speck? I don't know. I'm reaching here, guys. Put something down in the comments below. Mention speck and dust, and that'll let me know you watched the whole video all the way to the end. Get out there and build something awesome. A car, a course, a community. Those things keep this hobby alive, and then smash it, crash it, and bash it. But don't break the expensive parts. Peace.
Small heart, big heart, that's the Speck-B.
Wow.